Interesting. I don't know if it lets you do two at once. We'll try. Oh, I think it lets you do one. I think it lets you do one or the other. So we'll test.
Okay.
YouTube. Okay. Live on YouTube. Says we're going. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is a magician and writer. He has spent decades researching techniques for undoing our conditioning and changing our realities, including chaos magic, psychedelics, and the alchemy of sensed energy. He is a qualified, connected breathwork coach and a leading light in the chaos magic organization, the Illuminates of Thanatos. He is the author of the groundbreaking new volume, Life Force, Sensed Energy in Breathwork, Psychedelia, and Chaos Magic. Welcome to the show, David Lee.
Okay, thank you.
How are you doing today?
Yes, not bad at all. And you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to have you on the show. I looked at your book and I listened to a little bit of your interviews. It's fascinating stuff. And what I like in the intro is the unconditioning. What are the techniques that we can do to kind of uncondition our mind? Because when I started my path, that was kind of the thing. I realized there's something going on. I need to unprogram myself and then reprogram myself. So for those who don't know you, do you want to just introduce yourself and a little bit about your work and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I suppose you could describe me as a magician with a science background, or, you know, it runs right through my life to a large extent. The sort of interface between magic and weirdness and science. And when I was a child, I was fascinated by science, but I think I got that fascination from realizing that, or for me, that it was a kind of a magic, that there was one. I have a very vivid recollection of the moment when I first gave up magic, as it were. I was about 4 years old and I was told that magic wasn't real. And it had some kind of immense effect on me. I can't remember the emotion. I can just vividly remember the scene. But I do know that after that, I got really interested in science, and that was my whole track through school. But then in my late teens, I was growing up in the late 60s, early 70s. So, of course, I tried LSD, and that gave me a number of experiences which were decidedly magical, particularly of an energy magic type, which obviously we'll come on to later. That's where the subtitle of the book refers to. Really, you know, I had a couple of years of doing all that sort of living that crazy lifestyle and stuff, and then went to university and got a science degree. And only after that did I sort of try to fuse the two together, really. It was not, instead of just one lifestyle flipping over into another, it was a case of, okay, where can I go with this? I started meditating, and then I bumped into the chaos magic current in the late 70s. I was a postgraduate student at Leeds University in the north of England at the time, doing some scientific research. And at the same time, I met a bunch of people who were into magic. And I came across this book by Peter Carroll called Liber Null, which was the first sort of totally chaos magic book. There were books before that had some of those elements in there, but that was the book that really started it all. And I thought, oh, hello, it's like coming home intellectually. It's like, here's a model of magic that I can be with as someone who has gone through the whole process of scientific skepticism. And here's something that I can work with that doesn't require that you believe in some, you know, passed on tradition thousands of years old that someone's going to illuminate you into, or that you believe that you know, that there are spirits floating around everywhere or whatever. Not that that's necessarily a wrong belief, but it's usually it's usually the other side. It's usually people are either have some sort of religious and mystical beliefs, or they're into science. Whereas I wanted to fuse the two together, and chaos magic is the skeptic's way, really, or it was at that point. That's how it appeared to me. It was a scheme of approaching magic from the point of view of someone who's been brought up in a culture which is massively skeptical of magic. So that was really where, that was my sort of maturing point. At some point in my mid-20s, the whole thing started to coalesce. And so I started to think of myself as a chaos magician.
Wow, interesting. Well, I like how you have the science background, because that always helps. For me, I was always into the mystical type of stuff. So with your research into the science and trying to marry the two, like, what is chaos magic about? What is the book about? What have you learned? What are some of the techniques?
Okay, well, the original approach of chaos magic was basically very strongly based. Have you heard of a guy called Robert Anton Wilson, American writer, Californian writer,
Yes.
who was absolutely massive through the 70s, 80s, died about 10 years ago. He came up, he really originated the idea that became the core idea in chaos magic, although he didn't invent the idea of chaos magic. He called it multi-model agnosticism. In other words, whatever situation you're in, you can come up with a model for it, which might be a religious model, a scientific model, a psychological model, blah, blah, whatever. But it's not the ultimate truth. And that you can only be sort of honest with yourself if you admit that you don't know the ultimate truth about everything that's happening, or even a particular situation you're in. But B, that you're free to switch between different truth criteria. You're free to switch between a scientific model, like the mainstream, or you could use a psychological model, which is kind of a variant of the scientific one with a bit more space in it, or you can switch straight to a magical model. And all of those three kinds of approaches to decoding reality can be kept in the same mind. So this is Wilson's big idea: multi-model agnosticism. Agnosticism in the sense of I can't make an absolute statement about what's happening. Multi-model in the sense that there are all sorts of models for dealing with whatever you're in, and each of them could be very useful, but just use the one that's useful. Don't get stuck with it as a permanent belief system. So that was the starting point, really, I think, for chaos magic. The most important insight in Peter Carroll's first book, Liber Null, back in 1978, was that magic is dependent on belief. That what we believe about what we're experiencing affects what's going on. Yeah, this has been diluted into that sort of new age mush about, you create your own reality, man, and sort of thing. But this is kind of it's similar, but a bit more rigorous. It's saying, well, how do we do this? And so the first point is that you need to be able to shift your belief system. First, shift your big belief system so that, okay, instead of just thinking, right, I'm a diehard materialist or an atheist or whatever, you can think, okay, today I'm a magician, or for the next hour, I'm a magician. That's the first shift. And then you get in shifts within that shift that say, okay, what kind of magician, what kind of style do I want to use here? Am I working with energy? Am I working with a particular tradition? Am I working with spirits? All that kind of stuff. Various other beliefs that you get used to having, these nested beliefs that end up in you doing some action. So an action that might be described as a ritual, it might be really elaborate. You might put loads of wonderful robes on and burn loads of incense and have a room that's beautifully decked out with the right coloured candles and lights and everything, and tapestries and all that stuff. Or it may be as simple as, one of the simplest rituals I ever attended was a friend of mine got us all to just step over a line drawn on the floor. You had to do loads of mental preparation beforehand, but that was the ritual. All you did was step over this line. Of course, that whole business about there being a line you can or cannot step over is deeply embedded in popular mythology anyway. We talk about that's a line I will not cross and so forth. And that can be made into a powerful metaphor for leaving one state of being, for leaving one state of existence, one state of your everyday life, and then moving into another where things are different. So magic is all about change. It's all about having the ability, the capacity, the power, if you like, to change from one set of conditions to another. But all of that stuff is powered by a different element, and that's what Peter Carroll called gnosis, the old Greek word gnosis, which is usually translated in the older documents. It's something like divine knowledge or divine intuitive knowledge, something like that. He meant it purely as like an altered state of consciousness, an ASC, which can be anything from mild disorientation caused by spinning on your own axis or something, through to hours of dancing through to sex, through to psychoactive drugs, through to prolonged ritual preparation. All of these things cause a change in your state of consciousness. So you need to be kind of uncoupled from your normal worldview. You need to sort of be able to drop away the beliefs that say, I'm not a magician, magic's impossible, I'm just an ordinary blah, blah, blah. You need to be able to drop all that away and go into a special space, which you might think of as your temple or your inner temple. And there you arrange things so that you create a little micro universe, which is better than the one you were previously in. And you sort of make that happen by an act of will and let go of it and come back to your ordinary life. And that the idea is that should ripple through your ordinary life and cause the changes you need to occur. So you've got two things going on there. You've got this ability to shift between one set of beliefs and another, vitally, centrally important to magic. And the kind of lube that makes all that happen is the altered state of consciousness. Are you hearing me okay?
Amazing. I love all that.
Okay, sorry.
It's so simple because, you know, what you're speaking about is being able to shift your perspective. And yes, kind of cut out a little bit. Yeah, the internet's been a little bit unstable, unfortunately, but I'm getting what you're saying. Sometimes it just gets a little robotic.
Oh, okay.
But you can hear me, right?
Yeah, there's a bit of a breakup in your voice just then, but I can mainly hear what you're saying. Yeah.
And actually, I'm just remembering now, every single time I've had a guest on from the UK, you're my third one. There's always a little bit of delay in the connection for some reason. Yes. I don't know what it is, if it's going farther or something, but it's happened before. But I just remembering that right now. I had Danny Nemu on. He was really interesting. And a couple other guys. But
he's a good guy, yeah.
You know his work?
Oh, yeah. I've got one of his books and I've met him a few times. Yeah, he's a very, very likable guy.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
so what I like, the main point of what I really like about what you're saying is you're talking about there's like this gap. I had it last time. It's like a 5-second gap. So what I'm saying is that I really like how what you're talking about is shifting the perspective, having the ability to shift your perspective and change your reality. And a lot of the time you actually need to change the physical body. So in neuro-linguistic programming, they say the first thing to shift your internal state is just change your body. You could jump up and down. You could do jumping jacks. You could, do like a little ceremony, but whatever you want to do. But the idea is you're moving the physical body first, and you're kind of like commanding your own reality, where on the other side is you kind of get mechanical. You get a little bit into a rut and everything stays the same. And so you become more rigid and it's a little bit more difficult to affect change. So maybe you can go into that a little bit deeper on maybe some processes that people can do to start, because the main fundamental thing is you can change your reality. Like magic, or I heard God referenced in a different way, is like everybody here is God, meaning you have the power to create and shift your reality. And I was like, that's true. And it only happens to the individual. So whether you want to call it magic, religion, spirituality, whatever, you have 100% ability to change and affect your reality. And that's a huge thing.
Well, I mean, in a certain sense, some people would say that some magicians would say that we're doing magic all the time, that we're constantly creating this reality, except that in most cases, it's a boring, tragic and restrictive one, whereas you can actually make it more alive, less restricted and more ideal than tragic. It's possible to transform all of these things. But to go to your main point there about physical techniques, yes. I mean, if you look at just through all the traditions from shamanic dancing and ecstatic movements and shamanism through to the very sophisticated and scientific stuff in yoga about different bodily postures, you've got, people have recognized this for a long, long time. I think one of the basic wisdoms is learning to sit still and to notice the current of your breath. This is obviously at the beginning of basic meditation. Anything from, if you need to meditate to calm down, if you need to meditate because you're following the 8 limbs of yoga kind of procedure. But just learn to sit down sit still. It doesn't have to be in a fancy lotus posture or anything. It can just be in your office chair, but learn to sit still and to be aware of the whole of your body. And then learn to, once you've been able to do that, if you can do that for 15, 20 minutes without getting up and switching your phone on or sort of like reading a book or, whatever, then that's a good start. And then once you can do that 15 or 20 minutes, start paying, not so much thinking about, paying attention to the current of your breath. So just notice it, going in and coming out. Notice if there are any sort of catches in it, such as, maybe when you think a very emotional thought, you find there's a sort of, your breath alters. Just learning to appreciate how the energy of breath flows through you from moment to moment all the time. Once you've got those two, you can then move on to actually looking at the content of your consciousness, of actually noting what's going on in the content of your consciousness, so that you start to develop that position of observing. But anyway, we're talking about the body at first. And in order to get to that state of having the capacity to observe your own stream of consciousness, which we all do to some extent, but to develop that, you need to be able to sit still and to get into a nice, easy rhythm of breath. So that's a really good starting point. One of the things you mentioned about if you feel stuck in something, you can just sort of jump about madly for a bit. That can be very, very helpful. Laughter is another thing that can help break up states. So you can, even if you've got nothing particularly to laugh about, if you start making yourself laugh, it sounds artificial at first, but if you work at it for a bit, eventually you will end up laughing like a madman. And your image has gone to be replaced by mine. Okay, we're back. I just switched my video off and on because your face disappeared and mine appeared. Yeah, did you have a break in it there,
David?
Pardon?
Yeah, I dropped out. I'm just.
I can't hear you now. It's badly broken up.
One sec. I'm gonna stop my video too.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop my video too.
Sure.
There we go. Hopefully this will. I just paused my video, so hopefully that will help.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we can just go ahead.
Cool. So where you dropped off last, and it kind of went robotic. So hopefully the internet will cooperate with us. You were talking about the basic importance of just connecting with your breath and just. So you want to pick up there? Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll just go with the audio.
So these basic physical things that can help shift your state. First one, learning to sit still. The second one, learning to just pay attention to the current of your breath. That's all it is. It's just something to do. And of course, all sorts of resistant thoughts come up and all sorts of worries and anticipations and stuff from the past and all of this. But just keep bringing yourself back to just feeling and experiencing the rhythm of your breath. So